Hi YouTube and welcome again to my Doctor Who Series 8 reviews. This is episode 2, Into the Dalek, which is written by Phil Ford and Stephen Moffat and directed by Ben Wheatley. So, I think I've seen this episode somewhere before. Oh yeah, just about every single Dalek episode ever written since the 1960s. I mean, there was so many references to old Doctor Who stories. More so than any was 2005's Dalek, where I see both hints of the Dalek from the 2005 episode and the Doctor from 2005. Capaldi plays Christopher Eccleston moments very well in this episode, and the Dalek even says a line that was in that episode. I mean, I know it's been 9 years, but it's still fresh in our minds because it's still New Who. But he says the line, "You would make a good Dalek," which, I mean, that scene is really well done, and I really do like that scene. But I just think we've all kind of seen this before, and the Daleks are still sort of think there's so much you can still do with the Daleks. So many new ideas. They just need to sit down. I know they have to use the Daleks every year because they're still the Doctor's greatest threat. They have to be in the episodes in some form or another. But I do think having them in episode 2 was a bit of a cop out when you could have put them in series 7 or 8 later on in the series when we're used to Peter Capaldi, because I think with us not being fully used to Peter Capaldi yet, it's kind of not helping him, not helping us like him as much, because obviously he's a much darker Doctor and he's more grumpy and more sort of stern and more sort of, and I mean we've only seen him smile a few times, and so that's a part of the charm that makes us like him. And I don't think, I mean, I'm still really big on Peter Capaldi, don't get me wrong about that. Like, his acting in it is brilliant, and the response he got was massive, and he's big. He's a big actor, and everyone loves him as the Doctor. I mean, certainly I do. But I do think if the Daleks were in it later on in the series, we would have had more time to get used to Peter Capaldi and then put him up against his greatest enemy. So other references that I've noticed were the Daleks from 1963, which was, funnily enough, the second episode in William Hartnell's first season, as Into the Dalek is the second episode in Peter Capaldi's first season. There's so many references to Genesis of the Daleks. There's lines in there at the end. Resurrection of the Daleks. There's just so many subtle little references to old classic Doctor Who, which, fair enough if you're going to do it. But again, I do think that you need to have more ideas. So we were introduced to another character in this episode. He's going to be a recurring character, Danny Pink, played by Samuel Anderson, who is a school teacher at Coal Hill School, and Clara's potential love interest. Now, yeah, I don't like this. Not that I don't like the character of Danny Pink. I think he's going to be a good character because he's going to change the Doctor's opinion on soldiers, in order for him to be let on board the TARDIS, or whether it'll be Clara that convinces him to let Danny come on board the TARDIS is thinking. But considering he never let Janie Blue onto the TARDIS, and I actually love that character. I think she's great, and she would have been a great companion. But I can't help but think of Vod from Fresh Meat when I watch her perform. She's a really good comedy actress. But the Doctor has always never been a big fan of soldiers. But yet this new Doctor is actually a lot worse than any soldier. I mean, the Doctor himself is a lot worse than any soldier, considering how many lives he's taken. And yet he doesn't allow soldiers on board because they carry guns and stuff. River Song carried a gun, and she was one of my favourite companions of Matt Smith's era. I mean, I hope she comes back at some point, but I doubt she will. But yeah, so that's why I don't get. But hopefully, the thing that I don't like about the thing is the romance again. I don't see why Stephen Moffat needs to have characters having a romance. The Emmy and Rory thing worked because we were introduced to Rory in the first episode, that we were introduced to Amy Pond and Matt Smith, so that was okay and kind of worked. But after a certain, like, we've already had like half a season with Clara now, and now we're just getting this romance thrown in out of nowhere. And I bet this is the reason she's going to leave, plot wise. She'll stay on Earth to get married to Danny Pink or something. It'll be the normal sort of running away into the sunset kind of thing, and that's why she'll leave the Doctor. This has happened a few times in Doctor Who before, like with Jo Grant and with Susan. I just don't feel the need to do it. I think killing characters off is a lot more a lot more fun. But then again, you always could come back if that is the case. Cole Hill is well mentioned in this episode. I'm loving Cole Hill. I think Cole Hill is going to be a massive part of this series. For both Clara and Danny Pink, they're both teachers there, and the student Courtney, who's going to become another recurring character, who was in the first episode as well. If you missed her, and the second episode, she's going to become a recurring character traveling in the TARDIS later on in the series as well, which is I'm interested to see how that develops. One thing I will say about this episode that I really sort of bummed off was the Daleks killing again and actually being quite menacing and quite scary, which I think is about time, because I don't think we've seen a Dalek exterminate someone since Series 5, and we're on Series 8 now. Victory of the Daleks was the last episode where any form of person was killed by a Dalek, and now we've got exterminations left, right and centre. I love it! Yeah, that was great. I don't know whose idea it was to let the Daleks kill again, because Stephen Moffat's turned them into this massive joke up until now. Well, Series 6, they were only in it for a little bit, for a bit of a cameo, but Asylum of the Daleks, they were so awful, they didn't kill anyone, and they could have easily killed anyone. And then again with the Time War, I mean, the Time War was the time when thousands and thousands of people were killed, and yet we didn't see a Dalek exterminate one person on screen. And then again in the time of the Doctor, we didn't see the Daleks kill anyone on screen. So, kudos to Phil Ford and Stephen Moffat for actually going ahead and doing that. I think that was what was needed of the show at this time, especially considering they want to take it on a much darker path. I think that worked really well. I'm glad they did that. I'm going to talk about randomly why Game of Thrones characters keep appearing. We had one from the last episode, and now one again in this one. I don't know if this is going to be a running joke for the series or something, but it's good because Game of Thrones is a good show. Not one of my favourites. I mean, I don't follow it religiously. I catch it now and again. But I thought the Doctor in the episode again was just really dark again. He let Ross die to save everyone else, and the Doctor's never let anyone die unless he can absolutely save them. Which I didn't actually like, but then again, I am taking a different attitude towards Capaldi's Doctor. And I've got a theory on Missy, because she appeared in the episode again after Gretchen had died. At the start of the episode, when Janie's rescued by the Doctor, he materialises the TARDIS around her to save her life, and brings her onto the TARDIS. Now, I know someone else who had a TARDIS when she was in the series, in the early time, in the classic series. The Brownie had a TARDIS. More theories have been surfacing about Missy's character and how she's going to be the Rani, because she could have materialised her TARDIS in the split second that Gretchen was going to die and make her appear on the Rani's TARDIS, which I would love the idea of Heaven being the TARDIS, being inside the TARDIS, being in the Rani's TARDIS. I think if they brought the Rani back, this would be a really wise move, because then I know that Moffat didn't want to bring the Master back, but why not bring the Rani back, who was another Time Lord, who just wanted power. I kind of hope that this does happen, actually, because I like that every year in Doctor Who they've brought a classic monster back from the classic series. And reading synopsises for all the episodes, they haven't done that yet, and it's just been a bit like, I've been slightly, sort of, I want them to do it, whether it be like the Crinoids, or, Candyman, or Rani, or, well, they're just a few to name, but you easily bring monsters back. It's trying to find fan favourites, though, but everyone has their own favourites. So yeah, generally I thought the episode was really well good. The direction, Ben Wheatley directed Deep Breath last week. I don't think he did his directing as well in this episode, mainly due to the fact that all the slow scenes that Ben Wheatley did last week were so beautifully shot, so so wonderful that the fast pace from this episode was a bit different and a bit more stagnated. It wasn't as easy to. I didn't like it as much, but the overall tone of the episode and the general tone of the series is getting darker and darker, and I love it. Clara's character again didn't do much for me in this episode, other than the little scenes that she had with Danny Pink, which this relationship's just coming out of nowhere. Um, we've got to have some kind of attraction, but I do see that in the character. But it's just awkward. It's just awkward to watch. So I do like the concept of going inside a Dalek and seeing what it's like inside a Dalek. There is one scene where they're in the Dalek's eye stalk where everything's slowed down and distorted, and I think that scene's really well shot. And where the light flashes from the Dalek's eye stalk as they're going down the eye stalk, that bit looks great as well. And we see lots of explosions, which is always good in Doctor Who. We like a good explosion. So generally, I was pretty happy with the episode. I don't think it was as good as moments from Deep Breath, but I also think that the tone of the episode was better than Deep Breath. So I think for that reason and that reason only, I'm going to give it a 7.5 to 8 out of 10. And I think just because of certain scenes and because we actually got to see, I think the reason more than anything is because we got to see the Daleks kill again, which was something which I'd been praying for, making the Daleks scary again and menacing again, which has been achieved, which I'm actually really thrilled about. And if the Daleks are going to be in it again, they need to keep that motif and keep people getting killed by Daleks. So yeah, 7.5 to 8 out of 10. Let me know what you think. I'm anxious to know about what you think about my theory of Missy being the Rani. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, leave a comment. I've been Jack Leslie. You've been watching my YouTube channel of Doctor Who reviews for Series 8. And I'll see you next week for Robots of Sherwood, which looks quite interesting as well, Robin Hood. Although I'm not big on the fact that they're trying to make Robin Hood a historical character as opposed to the fact that he's a fictional character. But I will have more to say on that next week. Ciao for now.